Orleans. Welcome back to the show. Got about another 25 minutes or so, and joining us up in Minneapolis, I don't know if he's whining as much as I was. The last time I was in Minneapolis, I'm assuming he's cold. Jeff Duncan joining us right here on the show. You surviving? You taking the polar plunge or what?
Dude, it is freaking freezing up here. I
almost spit out my drink.
When Jeff starts out with a dude, you know it's bad
I almost
news.
spit out my drink.
He literally almost spit it out on his monitor. Oh, my gosh.
Hey, seriously, though, guys, I just got done talking to Thomas Morstead, and he's doing a polar plunge tomorrow, and he's trying to talk me into doing it with him. And
I dare you. I double dog dare you.
I mean, you hung out with all of his relatives. You've kicked rugby balls. You should do this.
Absolutely.
I think you should do this.
That'd be great for our website, Mr. Dunk.
Yeah, right.
I would get lots of page views.
I asked him over and over, what would possibly coerce him to want to do it? I mean, what's the appeal of diving in a freezing cold lake? I have no idea but he's going to do it. He's got family that's from up here, so he said he's done it before. He's a better man than I am.
By the way, it was 74 degrees there yesterday.
Thanks, I appreciate that, JD.
It's not as warm. It's not as warm
No,
today. But no, Jeff. Look, you say you talked with Thomas Morstead. Obviously, he's up there for the big donation for all the money raised. Just what was his reaction to kind of the support since he's been up there?
Yeah, he's pretty blown away by everything, and the irony. I don't know if that's the right word, but he walked off this field 3 weeks ago, having no idea he'd be back up here in 3 weeks for the Super Bowl and to present a check for $221,000 to the Children's Hospital of Minnesota. So it's just a really cool story, and a lot of people involved in that. And he said it's kind of inspired him to try and grow his foundation even more. He's been committed to it for years, but he said this has been so inspiring that he really wants to see the money go back into New Orleans too. So they've started a campaign down in New Orleans. They've raised over $125,000 for the Children's Hospital down there, and they want to top what they were able to raise up here from Minnesota. So yeah, it's been a bittersweet end to the season for him. He's healing his ribs. He said he's no longer in pain, and he's going to have shoulder surgery here in a couple weeks. So for a punter, he's been through a pretty rough season.
Dunk, what is it with you and kickers? I mean, you and Morstead hanging out. I mean, you and Morty were, are tight. What is it with you and kickers?
Well, I think I appreciate the specialist, which gets overlooked. We were just talking to some of the Hall of Fame committee guys earlier about how there's going to be a drought on specialists at the Hall of Fame probably until Adam Vinatieri gets in. So, I appreciate what they do. And he was telling me how Morstead was saying just how much bigger he is than most other punters and specialists, that he's bigger than most of the guys on the special teams unit. He's one of the biggest guys because he's about a 6'4", 225-pound guy. So I appreciate his athleticism beyond just being a great punter.
He can tackle.
Funny line here. I do have to tell you all this because it was really funny. I don't know if you'd appreciate me telling you this or not, but I think you'll get a kick out of it. Josh Katzenstein, our colleague, just got done chasing Drew Brees around here on Radio Row, trying to get to him just to get a few nuggets. And he said that Drew Brees called him Larry.
Say you said it.
He told me not to say that on the air, so I'm glad you did it. So that was
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank
you. That's awesome.
The funniest thing I've ever heard.
That's awesome.
He must be a damn good-looking guy, that Josh Katzenstein.
And bald.
Hey, well, he's not so bald. But hey, Jeff, look, on the fly yesterday, we had the big news about Jim Henderson retiring. I know you were very good friends with Hondo. Just your thoughts on his career and just how much, to me, and I know Clyde and Jim would say the same thing, he's an icon here.
Very much so, and I think the last of kind of a dying breed of media icons. The media industry that we're all a part of has become so, I don't know, the best word I always use is stratified. There's so many different platforms now that people get their news from, different mediums, that we'll never see another Jim Henderson or a Peter Finney. who kind of owned this bully pulpit and had such great influence on viewers and readers and listeners in their markets. And people trusted Jim because they could tell just how genuine he was, how much he cared, how passionate, how earnest he was about reporting the news. And I think that conveyed through the television screen to the viewers, and you could see it when he would go out in public. He was so beloved, and he always had time for everybody. He never put on any airs. I think it just goes back to his roots, being from upstate New York. And he's a guy that I can relate to a lot because he's not from New Orleans, but I think everybody feels like he's truly a New Orleanian because he's been here and cares about the market so much and gave back so much to us. And I've always respected him for just the way he's carried himself all these years, because he's got such a lofty reputation and lofty status, but never, ever acted that way. And I feel a little sappy here talking about him because he's such a bad fisherman that, I don't know, I feel weird having to say all these nice things about it, to be honest with you.
Don't kind of the amazing thing is, and I remember back in 1978, that's how old I am, I can remember that. But 1978, Hap Glaude was such a legend on Channel 4, and, here comes this guy that no one ever heard of, and he's not from here. And I remember my dad talking about it, and, how upset I was when Hap was leaving, and he stayed on radio for a while. But, he came in and took over, and he never tried to force himself in the culture, I guess, so to speak. And it didn't take long for New Orleanians to endear him. And, just a few years later, him becoming the play-by-play guy in '86, growing up listening to Wayne Mack and Archie, and then for a very short time John Ferguson. But it was almost instant. Like, him becoming the voice of the Saints after listening to Wayne Mack so long, it was a smooth transition once he ended up taking over for John Ferguson. And he will always be endeared by Saints. But you talk about because he's not from here, it was a strange situation. And you're right. I don't think that there won't be another one like him.
No, and the thing about him is he truly appreciated and respected the position that he was in. I think that's important. He understood what it meant to be the sports director at WWL, what it meant to work there, and also what it meant to be the voice of the New Orleans Saints. And if anybody was around him during the week and saw the amount of work and the preparation he put in, not only to his nightly broadcast on WWL, but also into the game broadcast of a Saints game. I mean, the hours and hours of research and putting together a broadcast script for the game. And that was all very evident, I think, the listeners and the viewers when they saw him do his work. I mean, he was a former English major. He mastered the English language, and his commentaries that became almost like sermons, I think, to New Orleans sports fans on Mondays were just beautiful to listen to, because as someone that writes and uses words for a living, I really appreciated his ability to communicate a point in a very concise way, which, of course, you have to do in television. And I think that was also the way he called games as a Saints broadcaster, as a play-by-play man. And look, he provided the soundtrack for so many great moments for Saints fans for decades. And it's going to be big shoes to fill for whoever has to replace him as the Saints play-by-play man.
Jeff, one more, we'll let you run. Hall of Fame, what's your feel on what's going to happen with the voting tomorrow?
Well, I've had a lot of conversations, and I think it's going to be an interesting class. I don't think we know yet, other than Ray Lewis, who looks like a shoo-in to me as a first ballot entrant. I don't know beyond that, Larry, who's going to get in for sure. I think Randy Moss, Terrell Owens, Brian Urlacher, those guys have great chances. I think Alan Faneca, of course, former LSU standout, I think he's got a great shot. There's a lot of offensive linemen, and sometimes that can hurt because it can kind of balance out. A lot of people can vote for different offensive linemen, and none of them will get in. That's happened before with wide receivers. We've had a glut of wide receivers in the class, and we've got a lot of wide receivers this year. You still got Isaac Bruce on the ballot along with Owens and Moss. So I'm not sure what's going to happen beyond Ray Lewis getting a first ballot induction, which I think is kind of a no-brainer.
All right, that's Jeff Duncan up in Minneapolis. Jeff, we will talk to you again on Monday after the vote, after the game. Stay warm, my friend. Stay warm.
That's going to be hard, guys. Anyway, have a great show, guys, and I'll see you all when I get back.
All right, buddy. That's
Thanks,
Jeff Duncan. One more segment coming up. We will head back to Minneapolis and talk with Josh Katzenstein.
We'll talk with Larry Holder.
Don't bring that up. He's going to be bitter. He told me not to mention that.
I hope he was standing next to Jeff while this was going on.
I doubt
and
it.
Now he knows.
I doubt it. So, as Dave knows, we cannot hurt Josh's feelings, right, Dave? We cannot do it. Oh, boy.
No, me and Josh are cool now.
I love how it's so simple now. Are we cool now?
Yeah, exactly. So one more segment, so come on back. Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. Duncan Holder.